What's going on? We're back at it. And again, every day is crazy living in historical events over and over and over and over again. And just every day, there's an attack against humanity, rights, equality. Just it's chaos and confusion on a consistent basis. And this is literally designed, this is by design to make people feel defeated, to make people feel hopeless, to make people feel like there's nothing we can do to fight against the oppression that many of us are facing. But we do have options, and it isn't the end. And I also want to encourage people to continue to do things that bring happiness to you, as long as you're not treading on other people's rights and freedoms. Right? So if you like going to the movies, go to the movies. If you like listening to music, listen to music. If you like going out to eat, go get something to eat. And in particular, go to a local restaurant to support local businesses. But let's get into this next chaotic situation. I also want to put a disclaimer. My education is literally everything that's taking place right now. Okay, my bachelor's is in sociology. Okay, I have a bachelor's of arts in sociology with a minor in substance abuse treatment. I have a master of arts in social sciences. So when we're talking about politics, economics, sociology, political science, things of that nature, when we're talking about um, policies, legislation, that's me. Like my masters of arts in social sciences with a concentration and focus on women, gender and sexuality, US history and politics. So again, this is one of the reasons why even before all of this crazy shit started being implemented, I was already making videos discussing these things. This is sadly nothing new. What's happening is not new. There really is nothing new under the sun. A lot of this is a repeat from what we have seen in the past. And unfortunately, you would think people would learn from the past so we could avoid reliving it, but here we are. So let's talk about it. Trump downplays economic fears, and the data shows people feel differently. First of all, a lot of people, November 5th, 2024, made the decision to vote for Donald J. Trump or to vote third party or to not vote at all. And these are the very same people who now are freaking out. Oh my God, I'm losing my health care. Oh my God, they're coming for my benefits. Oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. And it's like, were you not around all of the previous months when he was telling you exactly what he planned on doing? A lot of you are finding out that you are actually DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion. Oh, that's right. That includes veterans. Surprise, surprise. Anyways, this is being brought to me by NPR. Additional information is in the description box below. But let's talk about it. The past few weeks have been anything but that. There's been confusion over the fluctuating trade tariffs with Canada and Mexico, cuts to the federal workforce, and the looming threat of a government shutdown. Now, if you remember back in 2009, as we came into 2009, we had a government shutdown. And that was, again, under President Trump during his first term in office. And that was 8 years ago. You would think we would have learned, but okay. That's not to mention Monday's stock market plunge, which saw the Dow Jones Industrial Average drop about 2%, more than erasing the gains since President Trump's inauguration. The NASDAQ lost 4%, which is now when you hear these terms, a lot of times to everyday people, it doesn't mean a lot, or people don't understand what it means. But then when you think about yourself, think about your 401k, think about your IRA or your Roth IRA, your retirement accounts, your savings accounts, your certificate of deposit, your mutual funds. All of these things are taking a major downward spiral because of what's going on. And that is actively going to impact the lives of millions of Americans in this country and impact the lives of people around the globe. When economists search for signals that a recession may be approaching, first things first, I'm just going to keep it real. In my opinion, we've been in a recession since coming into 2020. As far as I'm concerned, we've been in a long recession for the past 5 years. Um, and a lot of people look at me like, what do you mean? What do you mean? Think about it. People have been losing their jobs for a while. The cost of living has increased significantly. I mean, it is double to triple what it used to cost just 5 years ago. The value of the American dollar has decreased significantly, which is why it seems like your money doesn't stretch those bills at Foreman Mills. Dollar Tree is $1.25, okay, for a reason. There really isn't a dollar menu anymore, okay? The value of the dollar has gone down drastically. So to me, the signs that we were in a recession, like I said earlier, in my opinion, has been around since 2020. But they usually focus on factors like growth, unemployment, and inflation, right? So you think about your GDP, inflation, the rates of unemployment, and mind you, Trump is causing the unemployment rates to increase because under his administration, they are firing tens of thousands of people from federal government jobs. And a lot of these federal government jobs typically provide quality wages and salaries, amazing benefits, and job security that no longer exists because of Trump and his administration. However, they also closely monitor consumer confidence and business sentiment, two critical indicators of the broader atmosphere of uncertainty. Since the start of Trump's second term, there has been a whirlwind of policy changes that many economists say fueled this uncertainty. Which, when you look at the stock market, it's literally driven by speculation. Speculation is essentially what we mean by consumer confidence and how people feel and think and what they're assuming is going to take place. That's essentially is what drives our stock market. Okay. So, quote, if you have an uncertainty about what policies is going to look like, that is going to cause you not to make a big important decision, says Gerald Cohen, chief economist at the Kennan Institute of Private Enterprise at the University of North Carolina. Quote, if we're already in an environment that doesn't look good, that uncertainty could tip us into a recession. And again, it is. It is. Because again, people are looking at things like, okay, you're taking away rights. You're literally persecuting an entire marginalized groups of people. You're laying off everybody from jobs. The billionaires continue to get richer and richer and richer, while everyday working people become poorer and poorer and poorer. People can't really afford to go shopping like they used to. People can't afford to go on vacations. People can't afford eggs. And remember, people voted for this man because they thought that the cost of eggs was going to decrease, and it has yet to decrease. In fact, it has increased, as well as the rest of the groceries costs have increased. The Economic Policy Uncertainty Index provides a snapshot of this sentiment. It relies on news articles, tax data, and insight from the Federal Reserve Bank of Philadelphia's survey of professional forecasters to produce a metric that gauges uncertainty in at the intersection of economics and politics. And that's something that's very deep, because politics and economics are very much woven together. The intersectionality, if you will, right? Like, economics impacts politics, politics impacts economics. Again, this is why when I'm always talking about the economy and policy and legislation and politics, this is why, because this ultimately impacts our everyday lives, and which is another reason why it bothers me and it annoys me when you have grown adults sitting around downplaying the seriousness of this. And these are yet the same adults who are about to lose their housing choice vouchers, about to lose their financial aid, about to lose their Medicaid. I'm just keeping it real, okay? About to lose their food stamps, okay? People think everything's a joke and they downplay things, or, oh, elections don't matter. Oh, you're blowing it out of proportion. Oh, it's not that serious. I bet those 83,000 VA, Veteran Affairs Department, federal government workers are taking it very seriously that they are probably going to be laid off. Okay? Again, at some point, people need to grow up. Because again, I'm hearing this from folks that are 30 plus. You're too old to not be aware of what's going on. At some point, it really doesn't matter what Lil Wayne is doing, what Drake is doing, what Kendrick Lamar is doing. All of that is irrelevant if you can't afford rent, if you don't have a job, if you can't pay for your groceries. At some point, you gotta grow up. Anyways, currently the index stands at its highest level since the pandemic. This is bad. One of the co-creators of the index, Scott Baker, an associate professor at Kellogg School of Management at Northwestern University, quote, periods of high political uncertainty and negative economic growth are correlated, as in it's a cause, right, in reaction, right? Like, Baker says what we're seeing now and what is reflected in the uncertainty index is a quote, a very coordinated, huge spike in political uncertainty. And it is coordinated because you literally have a political party who is attacking every single person, whether you're poor, working class, working poor, lower income, middle class, whether you're a cis woman, a trans woman, whether you're intersex, whether you're a cis man, a trans man, whether you're religious or non religious, whether you're black, white, Asian, Puerto Rican, Hispanic, Latino, Native American, Pacific Islander, really doesn't matter. We're all being impacted here. A lot of us are finding out the hard way that we are indeed behind. Okay, diversity, equity, and inclusion. And a lot of us are finding out the hard way that, fat meat is indeed greasy. Some of us are going to need to have our gallbladders removed by the end of this term. Maybe you caught the medical joke there, or maybe you didn't. Anyways, if you don't have a gallbladder, it's typically hard for you to process fat and greasy food. Anyways, let's continue on with what we were talking about. Likewise, the University of Michigan, go blue, proud alumni, proud alumni. University of Michigan's index of consumer sentiment has also taken a hit due to tariffs and inflation. Um, In February, it fell nearly 16% compared to a year ago, February 2024. Quote, what we're seeing right now is that consumers over the last 2 months have been feeling less and less positive about the economy, says Joanne Su, director of the University of Michigan's Surveys of Consumers. In the latest survey of small business optimism, the National Federation of the Independent Business on Tuesday, today, said an index had fallen by 2.1 points in February to 100.7. That's down 4.4 points from its peak in December. Though still above its 51-year average of 98, the NFIB said its uncertainty index also rose 4 points to 104, the second highest reading. It's not good. Emily G., an economist and senior vice president for the inclusive growth at the left leaning Center for American Progress, which is one of my favorite, and I'll be the first to say it, which is one of my favorite think tanks, suggests that Trump administration's erratic policy initiatives have created a level of uncertainty that is more than just vibes. Quote, it's damaging for the functionality of essential public agencies, but also for a lot of private sector employees and businesses too. Again, when you think about your 401k, it's there's no positive growth right now happening for most of us who have 401ks, IRAs, Roth IRAs, retirement accounts. And a lot of us will feel that when you're trying to, uh, when you're trying to retire later on down the road. And again, the out cold part is Trump, like many people did November 5th, continues to downplay the seriousness of what's going on. A recession is generally defined by economists as a period of economic contraction, okay, indicated by two consecutive quarters of negative growth. In the fourth quarter of 2024, the US real GDP, like I mentioned earlier, grew at an annual rate of 2.3%. But at the end of February 2025, the Atlanta Federal Reserve Bank's GDP now forecast for the first quarter of 2025 dropped to negative 2.4%. So we lost an additional point, half of a point from where we were. And this is what's sad because I hate to be that person, but it's the truth. Um, you can't say we didn't warn you. You can't say we didn't tell you that this was going to happen. But again, a lot of you didn't think fat meat was greasy, and now you're finding out in a very harsh way that it is. This is really sad. Oh my gosh. Trump has downplayed concerns that his seemingly indecisive policy pronouncements may contribute to uneasiness among consumers and businesses. When asked in a recent Fox Business interview about the Atlanta Federal Reserve's warning of an impending economic contraction, aka recession, he sidestepped the question, saying, "quote I hate to predict things like that." And it's like, well, you're the president. What did you think you were going to be doing in that role? I guess she's going to push that off on Musk to make that decision for him, or perhaps Putin. Who knows? Responding to a question about whether CEOs could expect any clarity on tariffs, he said, quote, well, I think so. But, the tariffs could go up as time goes by, and they may go up. I don't know if it's predictability. And I'm just going to say it. If you ever notice with President Trump, he doesn't really say much of anything. It's a bunch of bullshit. and he's uninformed on the vast majority of the things that he's signing executive orders on and making decisions on. And it's just really ridiculous because it's like, what is the point of you even interviewing him when he doesn't even know what he's talking about? Anyways, last week, Kevin Hassett, the newly appointed director of the National Economic Council, spoke to reporters and defended the White House tariff policy. Of course, you were appointed by Donald Trump's administration to be the director of national economic policy. So, of course, you're going to defend the White House tariffs policy. Blank, if we reduce inflation at the aggregate level by cutting $2 trillion in annual deficit spending, that will have a much greater impact on grocery prices than a tariff here or there. Meanwhile, in the state of Michigan, with a 25% tariff on Canada, our electric energy bills, like your heating and cooling, yeah, consumers energy, DT energy, etc., we're going to be tacking on an additional $100 per month for the exact same thing that you're receiving now. And many of us are already paying an arm and a leg, especially in the winter season. So if you thought 290 was a lot, enjoy 390. If you thought 400 was a lot, enjoy 500. Because that's what that 25% tariff is going to do. Anyways, Nick Iacovella, Executive Vice President of the Coalition for a Prosperous America, which has supported Trump's tariff policy, explains, quote, what companies really want is a stable and clear trade and industrial policy, one that sets out goals to boost a country's industrial capacity. Now, that part, the left leaning alphabet gang warrior, that part I agree with. It would be nice if American companies and American manufacturers would create our own stuff instead of constantly relying on foreign countries. That would be nice. Not only would it be nice, it would create jobs. And typically, at a manufacturing style job, it typically pays pretty well. But the way we're going about doing it with tariffs on other foreign countries is not the way to go, in my humble opinion. He adds, quote, domestic manufacturers are very clear that the president is committed to enforcing broad tariffs and delivering on his trade and tariff agenda. Ultimately, the final judgment on the president's policy will be determined by the everyday Americans voting with their cash, whether they continue purchasing cars, furniture, electronics, according to Sue. Okay? Quote, consumers' spending makes up 70% of the GDP. See, this is why when we're talking about economic boycotts, this is why we're saying don't shop at Amazon, stop buying vehicles from Tesla, don't support Target, etc. Shop local, buy local, support women owned business, black owned business, Hispanic Latino owned business, LGBTQIA plus owned businesses. Support your local economy, support your state economy, right? We're saying that because literally we control the show. We are literally 70% of our GDP. Okay? That's a lot of power. Okay? And I don't think, people don't understand that our gross domestic product, GDP, okay, is the standard measure of the value added, created through the production of goods and services in a country during a certain period of time. So typically we're speaking in quarters. So 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, 12 months, 4 quarters. Oh my goodness. So again, if consumers, you, me, us, if we decide, you know what, those 25% tariffs, I can't buy a new car this year. You, guess we're not going to get that new bed set. these tariffs. Ooh, and on electronics, guess you won't be getting your iPhone, which to me you shouldn't be doing anyways, considering what's going on in the Democratic Republic of the Congo. Again, maybe if we cared more about, each other, we would be more conscious about where we're spending our money. But now, mind you, if you look at the countries that have the highest GDP, the United States has a GDP number one, right? We are the country with the highest GDP currently. Keyword currently. Our GDP is about $25.43 trillion dollars. And out of that $25.43 trillion dollars, the consumers, you, me, us, we make up 70% of that. Do you see the problem when we're always complaining about how hard it is to live and the cost of living, yet all we do is consume shit that really doesn't benefit us at the end of the day? We are the ones that have the power, and maybe one day we will unlock that power. This is why we need to be doing more economic boycotts and making more conscientious decisions on where we spend our money, where we buy products and services and goods from, how we consume. This is why I'm always saying control your dollar. Okay. And it's crazy, right? Because I live this. Okay. There's a reason why I'm always going to local businesses. I'm always seeking out local entrepreneurs to get goods and services from because I would much rather support local people, local businesses, state businesses than to make somebody else richer. And what I mean by that is, does Elon Musk need another billion? Does Jeff Bezos need another billion? Okay, think about it. All right. I'll have information about the GDP, and I'll probably do a whole nother video that's completely separate just to discuss the GDP. But keep that in mind. Like, we are 70% of the GDP. I cannot stress that enough. Um, if consumers cut back on spending due to a significant drop in consumer sentiment, that would make it much harder to avoid a recession. See, you need people to constantly be buying, consuming, selling goods and services, producing goods and services, buying goods and services for this country to work because it's a capitalist country. See, which is really weird to me because you would think business owners, um, companies, employers would understand that. Like, obviously, if you can't pay your workers, they're not going to be able to buy shit. And yet, for some weird reason, a lot of these jobs do not pay living wages, and yet wonder why so many people can't afford basics, let alone anything that, is an extra, right? Like a new car, for example. Anyways, consumers, however, could just as easily regain their confidence, which is also very true. If, for example, if he rescinded a lot of these executive orders, if he got up and said, you know what, I was wrong, we're not doing these tariffs, we're going to do something else, I'm working with other people, and actually made better changes and stopped, laying off people from their jobs, guess what? People would be a little more amped to think things are going in the positive direction and would probably go out and consume. But if everyone is worried about losing their jobs and all of these federal fundings being cut, which thus leads to losing your job, people aren't going to really be too excited to, spend money. In fact, I tell people all the time, I literally teach financial literacy. I tell people all the time, you need to be saving your money. Okay. You need to be saving goods and services. You need to be bartering and trying to figure out how you can maximize your income because shit is hitting the fan and the rainy day is coming and it is raining and raining. It is pouring. It is literally pouring cats and dogs. So you might want to save that money instead of just spending it and splurging. Okay. Um, but I understand that that is easier said than done. Okay. All of us have different options and different privileges and different under privileges. So I get it. But again, many of us tried to warn folks that this was coming down the pipeline, and of course, we weren't taken seriously. And it's kind of just wild to witness all of this happening and then also be told that, you're being dramatic, you're fear mongering, it's not that serious, you're pessimistic, you're always angry, you're blowing it out of proportion, and then literally watching all of this unfold and happen. And I'm just kind of sitting there with all the other people who have been saying the same thing and sounding the alarm for the past years. I'm just like, okay, but remember, you didn't want to listen to me. Y'all have been so anti intellectual. And it's like the anti intellectual is exactly why we have a lot of people who do not critically think. Uh, and you don't want to listen to folks that actually know what they're talking about, but we're going to listen to somebody that has failed, that has had numerous failed business ventures. Okay. Someone who repeatedly has to file bankruptcy. Okay. Anyways, I'm just saying. Oh, and by the way, Tesla is doing rather bad, and I can hope that they continue to do bad. I hope that the stock value continues to plummet. Mhm. Stop buying Tesla. I hope Amazon is next. Yeah. Uh, Again, we are 70% of the GDP. At the end of the day, the buck truly stops with us. And maybe one day we will wake up collectively and see that we have the power because the clock is ticking. And every day that we act like, every day people continue to act like what's happening isn't happening is us getting closer and closer and closer to a lot of suffering. There's already a lot of suffering, but there's going to be more and more and more people being dumped into the suffering pool. I'm gonna end this video with saying this, and this has been said by so many people. So many people have said this. But you're more likely going to be homeless than you are ever going to be a billionaire. So I just want to throw that out there because a lot of you want to idolize people who are the exact reason why you're broke. Maybe it's time to turn those critical thinking caps on. Just being honest.